see now.
You make my high come down. Ooh, you make my high come down. Always tripping when you come around. Never have to cut you out like right now. You see, I don't have to drive me. You can say that for your mama. Maybe you should smoke some. Me try the marijuana. I was never you good. The vibe was straight. Shows you a couple of things and they feel the change. I treated you right. Everything was a gift from a time to your bag and the color on your lip.
Welcome to the Seahawks Man to Man podcast, powered by The Athletic. Shout out to the company. Shout out to the New York Times, too, I guess. Now a new company. My name is Michael-Shawn I'm here with my co-host, Christopher Kidd. Make sure you follow us both up on the tweet machine. You guys know where to follow me. Chris, talk to him.
What is up, everybody? It's your boy, Christopher Kidd. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at CKIDD206, and that's CKid206.
And I will go back to plug in the YouTube channel, Seahawks Man to Man on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, follow us, tell your homies about it. We do appreciate that love. For the people who are watching us on YouTube right now, you can tell that I'm back at my house. I am not at a poorly lit hotel room. Done traveling for the year. The Seahawks season is over. They went out with a bang. Good for them. They beat the Arizona Cardinals 38-30, finished 7-10, which feels a little bit like an accomplishment in the short term, I would say, because they started 3-8. So when you
Pitiful.
when you go from 3-8 to 7-10, little victories in there, but still 7-10 is a pretty disappointing result. And as we've done the last few weeks, there really is no need to talk about the individual game itself, although it was very entertaining. Good for Rashaad Penny, did his thing again. Super happy for that guy. Very sad for Quandre Diggs. Very sad for him. It's like balance. Happy for Rashaad. Very sad for Quandre. We are going to field and address these questions that you guys sent us in, because there are approximately 50 million of them, ranging from the offense to the defense, to personnel, to Jody Allen, to Pete, John, to Russ, everything in between, free agency, draft. There's so much to talk about. We're going to talk about a lot of that stuff as the offseason goes too, because we're still going to give you guys content during the offseason. But let's go big picture right now. Pete is still the coach as of
January 10th.
It's January 10th. It's a little after 2 in the afternoon right now. He has not addressed us in the media on Zoom. He will do that after we and Chris record this show. So just a frame of reference there. He's still the coach. Russ is still the quarterback. Monday, January 10th. And John Snyder is still the GM. So as of right now, those things are all the same. Put that out there in case shit get crazy in the next hour or two or day or so, or whatever. And so I know we got some questions about that, don't we, Chris?
Absolutely.
All right, let's kick this off.
All right. The Seahawks offense looked great these last few weeks. If the Seahawks run it back again with Russ, Pete, will we see more of this next year, or will we just get right back to Pete ball?
Yeah, so this is interesting. We got a lot of if they run it back questions. And it is a big, it's not, put it this way. It doesn't feel as big of an if now that we kind of got a feel for Pete still being here. Yeah, because I booked my flight coming back from Arizona. I booked the earliest flight I could Monday morning because I was like, I don't want to be in the air if something happens. Because if Pete was going to get the boot, it was going to be Monday morning. We were all going to wake up like, oh, Pete's up out of here. Like many of you guys probably woke up Monday and found out what Mike Zimmer got the boot, Vic Fangio got the boot,
Nagy
got the boot, Matt Nagy got the boot. Like, see, all those guys got fired within like 5 minutes of each other. Because that's kind of how Black Monday works, unless you're the Giants coach. Apparently, he'll survive somehow, or maybe he'll get fired Tuesday. Who knows? But I say that to say, Jody's not gonna come out and be like, all right, guys, we're running it back. That's just kind of not her. That's not her get down. So we really just have to kind of read the room. Like Pete gave us the most strongest endorsement he possibly could. Said, I'm in great shape. That's what Pete said. I know he wasn't talking about him having a six-pack. So I'm confident he's talking about his job. Right. And so obviously they're not going to trade Russ Monday morning. Right. So there's that. He's not going to fire any coaches at that time either. And so you got All right, was he going to do his radio show? Pete did his morning radio show. I'm going to get to the answer to this question. Don't worry. But he did his morning radio show. Like I said, after we record this, he's going to talk to the media again. So I'm taking all that to assume he's the guy. He's the guy going forward. Only person we don't know about right now is John. But for this specific question about the offense, will we see more of this next year or revert back to Pete ball? I do think that how the offense looked against Detroit, against Arizona. Who else did play well against? Houston. What was the other team in there? The Niners. I think so. Like how it looked there, and even some of the Rams game with their running attack with Penny in that game because he was kind of efficient, if I remember correctly. That is how they want to look, and I think Pete on his radio show Monday probably gave his best explanation of his offensive philosophy. And I actually encourage everybody to go listen to it. It's too long for us to play right now. It starts at about the 30-minute mark of hour 4 of the podcast for the Pete Carroll show. But it's very in depth, and it goes into how he expects the run game to help the passing game. But the line that really sums up makes this answer yes, that we will see more Pete ball, and yes, we will see more of how the offense looked these last few weeks, is this quote from Pete where he said, "We run the ball not so Russell can't throw. We run the ball so that Russ can kill them when he throws." And that right there, as long as Russ is the quarterback, that right there that's Pete's philosophy right there in a nutshell. I don't know if he's ever put it that way before, which is why it stood out to me. But that's it. He believes so strongly that we have to run it, or else our guy is going to have a hard time functioning at a high level when he has to throw. Whether that's true or not, who am I to argue with Pete on that, right? Like I could go back and forth with him for hours on that. But I think that quote right there, makes the answer to this question, will we see more of this or inevitably revert back to Pete ball? The answer is yes on both of them, because that is Pete ball, right there. We run the ball so that when we do throw it, Russ functions at a high level. I don't necessarily agree with that philosophy. Maybe we can expand upon that after we answer the questions. But I do think him saying that this morning really, really, really answers that question right there.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Don't need to really add much to it, but it'll definitely revert back to what we are accustomed to seeing. We will never see the let Russ cook era again. That's cooked.
Yeah.
There was hope that maybe Russ would see and realize the opportunity that you have with DK, and maybe if they draft a wide receiver, but that's not on their needs right now. It's not. I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't.
No,
and as you go ahead,
that's dead.
Yeah, I don't see Pete seeing the opportunity that, hey, he can throw the ball all across the field and they could be the Chiefs 1.5. Not going to be 2.0 of the Chiefs, but they could be a competitive, because from somehow, some way, Freddie Swain just is always open. You tweeted it, like, do teams purposely just bust coverages when Freddie's on the field? Like he is the
yes, they do. Yes, they do every week. It's either right or he doesn't.
He finds himself open, but yeah, it'll always be, as Pete said, hey, we're running the ball so that Russell is throwing it at ease. It's not as much of a challenge. Yeah. Like Mike said, he can argue either way.
Well, I do, and that's not bad necessarily, but I do think the flaw in that is what happened Sunday against the Cardinals is that there was a lot of instances in there where Russ had to convert 3rd and 8.
Yeah,
3rd and 8,
which he did.
Now he did, correct.
But that was not easy.
But we've seen over the years that is not going to be the case.
We've seen over the weeks, Mike, not the years.
This whole season. You're right. Just this season, we've seen that is hard to do consistently. Like I watched them in Arizona one year, I think in 2018, win a game without converting a 3rd down at all,
which is insane.
0-10, a 3rd down one year. One of those years they had Janikowski, or the year they had Janikowski. And it's like you can't do that. Right? You can't just say, hey, if we convert 3rd and 8s, we'll win.
No.
So that's the flaw. And I think Pete's thing is like, okay, let's run again. All right, cool. Now let's throw it. Well, yeah.
They expect to throw it. Yeah. It's not easy.
It's just hard to ask your quarterback to function that way. That's why early down passing is so important. But anyway, that answers the question. Let's move on to that next one.
If you run it back but fire Ken Norton Are there any top defensive coordinators interested in coaching under Pete where they have limited to maybe no control of the defense?
This is a good question, but I really think about what's being asked here. And that's not to the person who asked. Good question. This is not a slight to you. Think about it. All right. Do you think anyone wants to come in here and not be able to do their job? That's what's being, being asked.
That's what we discussed when we talked about Shane Waldron. We were like, so he's just coming here to just be a little, just whatever Pete says goes. Like, how much control does he really have? And now you're putting that on the defense. It's kind of the same thing. Like, if they gave me, let's say, what's a good starting range for a new OC coming in the league, Mike? Less than a mil?
Yeah,
Maybe a mil.
I don't think they make that much.
Let's just say $950,000. Hey, Chris, come in under Pete, be the quote unquote D coordinator. Sign me up. I wouldn't mind it. Now, someone else that has worked their ass off for years and years, that's looking to maybe branch off to being head coach, that's kind of tough. I don't know.
Yeah, so that's the problem. And like you said, we talked about that with Shane. Now it's a little different with the defense because Pete's even more hands-on with that.
That's his baby.
Yeah, particularly the secondary and the defensive passing game. So it's like, man, no, that's not attractive at all. It can't be. It can't be where it's like, yeah, man, you come in here and Pete's got his hand on that thing, and that's why I don't think Ken's going anywhere. And I don't think actually Ken's a decent coordinator too. I think I think this year kind of showed a little bit of that too, man. The way they adjusted to some things after a few weeks, and with the way they were throwing different guys in there and staying afloat, there was only a few games I thought where it was like, man, because they're playing this dude, they're getting cooked right now. And it was only a couple. I think it was one of the games they had to throw Bless Austin in there. Maybe two of the games that he played in particular. But it's like, come on, man. How many coordinators are surviving if you're down to Bless Austins? I don't really fault Ken, for that. Like if you're just randomly starting Bless and John Reed and you're like, oh, what the hell? They lost that Bears game. It's John Reed versus Jimmy freaking Graham in the end zone. I don't really know what Ken's supposed to do right there, and he had the play called that should have beat that too. Ryan Neal should have got over there faster. But think about that as Ryan Neal and John Reed is Jimmy Graham on a jump ball in the end zone. So, I mean, I say all that to say that I think Ken's a decent coordinator, probably not an elite one, like not one that they have to worry about getting snatched up for a head coaching job like they had to worry about with Gus Bradley and Dan Quinn and maybe one more in there. But I think that even if he was gone, again, he's not to my knowledge. It's just not an attractive job. I don't think really, because you guys want to be able to come in and do their thing, especially if you've never been a coordinator before. You want your hands on the defense. You want it to be your baby, your scheme, your brain. You want your guys to believe in you and execute your stuff. And that matters to some guys more than others because part of that is ego. But yeah, man, if I'm one of the hotshot defensive coordinators, like if I'm one of these defensive-minded head coaches that just got fired, like Mike Zimmer, Vic Fangio, no, I don't think I want to come in here and work for Pete. No.
Do you think Pete is in a bubble where he thinks this roster with a few changes can win a Super Bowl?
We'd have to define a few changes there. Like depends on what those changes are. But yeah, he said earlier this morning, Monday morning, that he was like, yeah, we're right there. When he got asked whether they're close to being a Super Bowl team, and I really think, he's wrong. I don't, and this is really important. Because, and I just kind of noted at this under one of Joe Fan's tweets today, don't let the last few months cloud your entire view of what the Seahawks are. Not just what they were this season and what they actually are, because their issues have been pretty common in a lot of places. Like third down, been an issue a lot of years in the past before, pass protection or run blocking or but pass rush has been, slow starts on defense. There's been a ton of stuff that's been the issue. But I really think that you can be close to it being a playoff team. That's true. That's 100% true. They were close to being a playoff team. Like their point differential. Like the Seahawks finished the year like 14th in point differential, like plus 29. The Raiders are like minus 55 and the Steelers like minus 65. All right. Like those two teams made the playoffs and they were probably just as good as the Seahawks this year. The Atlanta Falcons and the Seahawks, I'm pretty sure had the same record. I got that right, Chris? Were they both 7-10? Look that up.
Double check.
Yeah. Seattle and Atlanta were both 7-10. Difference Seattle's point differential plus 29. Atlanta's was minus 146. That means the Falcons are trash and the Seahawks are not. And the Seahawks are, put it this way, that the Falcons are trash, but of 7-10 teams, one of them is much closer to being a playoff team. And the answer is the Seahawks. So I do think you could be close to being a playoff team. Pete can be right about that. Now, if you ask me, are they close to being a Super Bowl team? Well, God, no. Like, look
They
at
just went 7-10.
yeah, look at the four, and everyone's a season away from going 8-8 in the NFL. But look at the four. Who are the best four teams right now in the league? That like best teams. Actually, don't give me the four best teams. Give me the four teams most likely to win the Super Bowl, because that's what we're talking about here. Who would
All
those
right, I'm going to say the Green Bay Packers, the Chiefs,
Yep,
the Bucks,
yep,
and I might just throw Dallas in there.
That's probably where I'm at. Something. I don't know. I don't know if I would choose Dallas over Buffalo or Tennessee. But anyway, even if we just take those five, the Seahawks are very far away from those five teams, and we neither of us named the Rams, which I don't think.
Oh no,
I don't think either. I think the Seahawks are very close to the Rams, but the Rams are like beat their butt every year. And then I still don't think the Rams are a Super Bowl contender. So, like, look at it that way. My point with that is that there is a gap between being a playoff team and being a championship contender. The 7 seed, let's look at the 7 seed in each conference. This is important. The 7 seed in the, this is not updated in the AFC. Who's the 7 seed in the AFC? Pittsburgh? I think.
Let me get it for you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Pittsburgh. And then the 7 seed in the NFC is Philly. Both of those teams are playoff teams. Seattle's probably just as good as both of those teams. Ball bounces here or there. They probably have the same records out of those teams. None of those 3 teams, Seattle, Pittsburgh, and Philly, are close to being championship caliber teams. No, they're not close. Just because you make the playoffs does not make you close. Like those teams, when those teams lose, Philly and Pittsburgh, they might get wrecked in the games that knock them out of the playoffs. So I do think that Pete does live in that bubble, and he can make some arguments about, like, he even said it. I think he was looking at me when he said it on Sunday. He was like, look, last year, he was looking at me. He was like, we were like 7-1 in like late game situations last year or something like that. This year we were like 0-5. And he was like, that's the season right there. He was like, you can look at it however you want, but that's it right there. And I wanted to jump in and be like, kind of. Like, and I think someone has a question in here about late game stuff, so we'll get to that. But Pete does live in that bubble. The answer is yes to that. And him living in that, I think, is really dangerous, man, because they are close. They are right there to being a playoff team.
Yeah, there's a big difference.
They are not well, if they were the 7 right now and they had to play, who's the 2? Who's the 2?
Ooh. Is it I think it's the Cardinals, isn't it?
Nah, hell no. The Cardinals are bad, by the way.
The Cardinals. So
like I can see them
I think it's the Cowboys then.
No, it's Tampa.
Oh, it's Tampa. Okay, I thought it was the Cowboys.
Nah, hopefully what I'm looking at is updated.
Either way, they getting smoked.
Yeah, no, like if Seahawks had to go to Tampa like this weekend, probably getting wrecked. Like that's just how it goes, right? Especially as currently constructed, because they are so banged up, losing Quandre and stuff like that too. But even if, let's say, they had Quandre, like I still think they probably get wrecked going to Tampa in Wild Card Weekend, and that's the difference between them being the 2 and the freaking 7. There's a gap. It's a huge gap there in terms of talent. Like anything can happen on any given Sunday or whatever, but I just think there's a significant gap.
Yeah, between a 3 and a 5.
yeah. I mean, honestly, the year that they were they were the 5, and that's 2019, and they beat Philly, which was the 4. There was a significant gap, I think, between them and Philly. And Philly was the higher seed. Remember, that was the year the NFC East was trash, and I think they won it at like
7-9, yeah, 8-8, something crazy.
But even then, I thought there was a significant gap between them at 5 and Philly at 4, and there was still another gap, I thought, between Green Bay at the 2 and Seattle at 5, right? As you know, so I just think that Pete living in that bubble was so dangerous, man. You can convince yourself that your team's a lot better than it actually is, and I think that's exactly what he's doing right now.
If Jody Allen asked you to submit 3 questions for her to ask John and Pete, what would you ask?
Ooh, this is a really good question. Okay, so one of them would be, what is the plan to get a top 10 offensive line. That's what we need to do. So that's one. And you can frame that however you want, but like that will be the gist of the question. Can we get a top 10 offensive line? Yes. How? No. You're both fired. For real. Like if the answer is no, then get out, because that's what we need to succeed. The other one would probably be, which one of you guys is controlling these first round picks, because this is a problem. Like this is a problem. Like I can't really trust you guys to rebuild if at the top of the draft, at least our draft, the top of our draft, meaning our first pick, you guys keep getting these blunders. Like I was looking at it the other day. I'm gonna look at it again here now that we're doing this on the show. We can do this live. Let's look at the 2012 draft real quick, because it was a very good draft for the Seahawks, right?
They got gold.
Yeah, they got like Bruce, they got Russ, but I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, the Seahawks in that draft traded out of pick 12 and moved back to grab Bruce, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, they did. The Seahawks initially had pick 12. They traded it for 15, a fourth round pick that turned into some guy that I don't know, and then a 6th round pick to turn into Jimmy Lane. You know who the Eagles took with pick 12? Do you know, Chris, on the top of your head?
Oh, who was it?
They took Fletcher Cox.
Oh,
right?
Who's still there killing?
Killing. He's killed the Seahawks before. So it's stuff like that. It's like, even in the year where you had a good draft, you still picked the wrong guy in the first round. You traded out of the pick that became Fletcher. It was like, how many years has this boy been All-Pro? He's 6-time Pro Bowler. Come on, man. He's on the All 2010 team, Fletcher Cox is. And you traded out of that pick. And they traded out of the pick that became Jair Alexander to take Rashaad Penny later. So the other question for Jody, like, all right, which one of you guys is doing that? No, if nobody wants to snitch on the other one, you're both gone. And I think something similar, probably question number 3 would have to be around DBs and drafting. It's just like, guys, can we draft DBs? Like, who's fucking that up? Because you got to go. Like I saw somebody make this point on Twitter. It's a very valid one. I can't remember who, but they was like, look at the secondary they have now. It was like Sidney Jones is like playing well, and he was acquired for next to nothing, and Quandre Diggs was acquired for next to nothing, and DJ Reed was acquired for quite literally nothing. And I was like, okay, cool, but they had to acquire those guys because the dudes they drafted have been stinking, right? And that's the problem. So
yeah,
if I'm Jody, I'm like, all right, whose fault has that been? All right. Nobody wants to snitch on the other. All right, everybody get out. That's kind of how I would play that. Because like when you draft well in the first round or at the top of your draft, when you draft DBs well, and if you have a plan for offensive linemen, you're gonna win a championship eventually, right? So those would be kind of I wouldn't ask them anything about Russ necessarily. I have more questions for Russ about them. So, but yeah, those would kind of be the 3 I'd go with.
Okay. Is a rebuild with Pete and Russ imaginable, assuming both stay? Do you think they could finally find an agreement and get this team on another level?
If they can answer the 3 questions that I had in the previous one, for real, because that's the goal. Why aren't we drafting DBs well? Like, what about our process is flawed there? And why aren't we drafting well at the top of the draft? What about our process there is flawed? And then let's get it O-line. But no, you can't rebuild when you keep your quarterback. Look at the teams getting fired. Not teams getting fired, but look at the regimes getting fired. Yeah, like if you're like Minnesota is about to rebuild. That's a rebuild. They fired their GM. I think his name is Rick. They fired Rick. They got Mike Zimmer up out of there. The new GM is probably going to be like, we're paying Kirk Cousins how much?
He's got to go.
Think about it. That new guy's going to walk in. That's going to be the first thing. Like, hey, man, congrats, Mr. So-and-so. Here's your office. Here's the water fountain. All right, here's some champagne. Congrats. All right, let's get down to business. All right, guys, give me the roster. We're paying Kirk what?
And they'll even make the playoffs? Yeah.
We're paying Kirk what? In American money? I'm like, yeah, nah. Somebody get
pesetas.
I'll be like, yo, that'd be my first order of business. I'll be like, yo, somebody get me Kirk agent. We about to negotiate this, my boy. We gotta get that up out of here. But I use Minnesota as an example. Like, that's a rebuild. They're probably gonna have a new quarterback, a new coach, and a new GM. Let's see. Kirk Cousins' cap hit in 2022 is $45 million. Yeah. that they're gonna have to rebuild. The Bears are gonna rebuild. They fired their GM. They fired the coach Matt Nagy, and Justin Fields is probably gonna be their guy in 2022 for the whole year. That's a rebuild. This is another retooling type of thing same thing after the 2017 season, and I just don't think that's not enough, man. It's not enough without like a drastic philosophy shift, and it's really hard to just shift your philosophy with all the same people. Like a philosophy is a shift in thinking, but if you keep all of the same brains, how much can they actually change? And we saw Pete change like one time. He let Russ cook for about 2 months.
And never again.
I can't imagine. It goes back to that question about Pete Ball that we opened with. I just don't think that you can rebuild fully when you have the same brains there. And I think I would include John in that too, because again, a lot of it comes down to constructing the roster. People look at the cap space they have, and that's a reason to be optimistic, but not really. Like, this is a team that had $50 million in cap space before and brought you back Barkevious Mingos and Ed Dixons and Luke Jokels and Eddie Lacy's and BJ Finney's and stuff like that, even though I liked the BJ move at the time. If you're going to use your money that way, if you're going to spend $9 million on Ziggy Ansah and $7 million on Greg Olsen, then you don't deserve to have the money. So I think that you have to get a huge philosophical shift here, or get really freaking lucky in the draft. One of the two. It's hard for you to just like confidently say that this rebuild's going to work if you're just making a tweak here and there.
What previously held opinion about Pete changed this season? I would say for me, it would be that he lost the locker room. There's a couple of rumors and murmurs about him losing the locker room. No, the guys went out there and played, and he was right there. I'm not saying they played for Pete, because they probably played more for each other and, the name on the back and the jersey, the Seahawks, the organization, the fans. But the fact that people, really thought that Pete might have lost that locker room because of the losing, how they were losing, those close games. He said there were 5 games that they did not win, and they were what? Within 3 points?
They were like 3-5 in a 1-possession game.
Okay.
This year, but that's even a weird metric just because like you look at the Rams, both Rams games were 1 possession, but a turnover at the end ended the game. It just so happens that there was enough time on the clock for the Rams to kick a field goal in both games, I think. So it ended up being like more than 8 points or whatever. Like the second one, for example, they lost by 10. So it looks like it wasn't that close, but they were down with the ball. Chance to go tie it or something like that. So they didn't finish very well.
But yeah, I'll just end it basically stating that I was probably one of those people that was like, damn, did Pete lose the locker room? Because it is not pretty right now. When you look at when they were 3-8, in my head, I'm like, yo, it might be a wrap. They're not going to
go ahead. Go finish it.
They're not going to fire him mid-season
to back that up. So I want you to keep going.
So yeah, with that being said, like at 3-8, I'm thinking, what more can this guy say? He's probably doing his best as he can. We have another week, blah, blah, blah. But at what point is another week just not enough? You guys are 3-8. The playoffs you guys have less than 5% chance of making it. You're going to have to win out. They didn't do that, but that 3-8 record, I was sitting there thinking, man, this might be the point where the locker room is just gone. And guys don't care what he has to say. They're just getting a check, coming to work to do their job. That's it. That's what's changed for me.
Definitely, that's a good and that was something I think we talked about. Whether you're weighing whether to fire Pete is like, our guy still playing for him, and clearly the answer was yes. And it's hard to kind of quantify what that looks like, although guys have really mentioned it. Guys who come from other places. I want to read a quote from Dwayne Brown today in his exit interviews. It's a little long, but I think it's really important. The quote: "Pete is one of the most consistent people I've been around, man. Win or loss, Pete never wavers in his approach. He's ultra positive, always finding ways to motivate you, always having fun, man. That's the one thing I'll say about him in this atmosphere in general. The fun is never exiting the building. No matter what the season is like, you still come to work, you're still enjoying the work. Pete did a great job of keeping guys in it. There were a lot of times you didn't quite know where it was going to go. And I've had seasons where we've lost 12 straight, and guys start planning their vacations, guys start checking out. That was never a thing here. And I think he was a big part of that. Keeping guys engaged, keeping everything upbeat and in high spirits," end quote. And that's important. That stuff is important, and I believe, because Dwayne's right. He's been on bad teams. Dwayne came in the league in like 2008, so he's been through a lot of iterations of ups and downs of the league. So that quote meant a lot in terms of like, all right, so yeah, Pete still had these guys, man, and that is important. Now, to answer the question on my end, what previously held opinion about Pete changed this season? I'm actually going to go the other way. Mine's more of what was perceived as a positive is actually probably just not true. Is that his teams are inherently good at finishing. I do think that was a thing. Like Pete Carroll's Seahawks, they're clutch. I was like, not really. No. They were getting kind of lucky. They were getting lucky. They got real lucky in 2019. Pretty fortunate in 2020 too. I mean, Pete Carroll even acknowledged after the game Sunday. He was like, "We made every field goal last year."
You know how uncommon that is, Pete?
And he knew, though. He was like, "We made every field goal last year. That never happens." So he was like, "If we just miss a couple of those, we probably aren't 12-4." He said that in his post game. You guys can go back and look. I thought that was really telling as well. He knows we're getting kind of lucky here. Now, he believes in like preaching finishing and you practice what you preach. Not to say he doesn't believe that part, but I do think there was like a sentiment that like, yeah, a Pete Carroll coach team, can you win in the fourth quarter? And it's like, with Russ, maybe, and that's only a maybe. So I think that we got to stop doing that with the clutch stuff and everything. And I can't remember if we have a question about the clutchness here, but so I'll touch on it here. And if we have to overlap, I'm sorry. But I personally, Chris, I don't know where you are. I don't believe in a clutch factor or clutchness, in football in particular, perhaps in basketball a little bit because you can isolate it to one man. But I really believe in execution. And typically teams who are just good at executing can execute when it matters as well. I think that's really all it is. Like the reason the Seahawks weren't clutch this year is not just because the ball didn't bounce one or two. Like that happens in football, but over the course of the year, it's very clear you guys were not good at executing. So when it was time to execute, you didn't execute. It doesn't matter if it was the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, or fourth quarter. And I think that was their problem here. And I think that's really what exists is execution. Pete Carroll's teams weren't clutch before they executed at a high level. This particular 2021 Seahawks did not. They did not execute at a high level. In 2019, I said they got a little lucky. They did, but they also executed at a high level in 2019. They were a very good team in 2019. So I think that is one of those things that like we should put that to bed. There's no magic here with a Pete Carroll team. You're either a team that executes or you don't. And I think that's we learned where the 2021 Seahawks fall, and that was a team that did not.
It's an interesting dynamic looking at it because in basketball, there's a lot of skill required in putting that ball in that little hole. Whereas in football, it's either you make the block or you don't. It's not really executing. Like if you're tired and you don't make the block, it's not because you're not clutch. You just did not execute on that drive to prolong that, game-winning drive or that huge fourth down. Those things like 4th and 21, which the Chargers went for. That's good execution. I don't know if that would be clutch. I get where you're coming from. Interesting.
Yeah, and I think the reason I say basketball is a little bit different just because, like, it's almost like baseball where it's like it's just you're the only guy at the plate, right? And you're the only guy with the ball in your hand. So you can just beat the guy in front of you. A play call doesn't have to matter. Someone doesn't have to hit a block.
Can you beat someone in front of you?
Yeah, it's like for some of those plays the Chargers made against the Raiders and that Sunday night it had to happen where it's like, all right, they need the right play call versus their right play call. You need everyone to hold their blocks. You need your guy to run the right route. You need the quarterback to see the route and make the throw. There's a lot of things that have to happen together. Whereas, like, I can just dribble the clock out, shoot a three, we win. Or shoot a three, we miss. Or swing the bat. I either hit the ball and it goes to the fence or it doesn't. There's some other stuff obviously involved in baseball, but you get the point. I just think football is about execution in the clutch, as all sports are. But I think football in particular, because you need 11 guys to be functioning all as one.
What about the quarterback being clutch, not to go continuous? Like that throw that he made on 4th and 21, like that was a pretty, like I would say that was a clutch throw. What would you say to that?
A play can be clutch. I just don't necessarily think there's like this inherent clutch, like gene or
got you
like element associated with like a Pete Carroll team. Like I don't even think it applies to necessarily like Brady necessarily. I think Brady has always executed at a high level. He's been a good quarterback for 2 decades. Therefore, he's been a good quarterback for 2 decades in the clutch. Like
why are you making it so simple, man? Sheesh.
There's very few quarterbacks who are bad and then just randomly are clutch as well. And like most of the really, really good quarterbacks are also clutch. You know what I mean? Like there's a correlation, I think, between just being a good player who executes at a high level. But even then, Tom Brady's only as clutch as the guy who catches the ball, and the guys who block for him too. So there's also that.
Yeah. All right. I feel you on that. I understand. What more plays and designs can Waldron add to make this offense even more dangerous and unambiguous?
Yeah, I don't think that. I'll put it this way: you hear a lot of backup quarterbacks and backup linemen come to new teams and say stuff like they get asked questions about picking up the verbiage or the scheme or whatever, and they'll say like, yeah, man, everybody in the league's running the same stuff. You either call it something different or you dress it up different. And Ethan Posick talked about that with some of the blocking scheme stuff in his exit interview. He was like, look, we're running the same plays. We either dress it up with emotion this way, dress it up with emotion that way. We run the same play with a different personnel grouping. Like we're running the same stuff. And that now there's obviously going to be different, stuff with blocking schemes and things like that. But my point with the Shane Waldron answer is that he's only going to drop so much stuff. Like you're only going to have so many different wrinkles. It's like the thing is, can you make everything look the same? Right? Like that was what we talked about that. Remember week 1 in the Colts game, they had a lot of plays that were different, but looked the same. Like one time Tyler would be the motion guy. Another time DK would be the motion guy. It's the same play. It's different personnel. Or maybe it's D. Eskridge getting the fly sweep. Maybe it's Freddie, or maybe it's instead
Gerald
of
Everett.
Yeah. And then maybe one play you run is out of 13 personnel, which is 3 tight ends. And then you line up that same thing. And then you run a play that you usually run out of 11 personnel, right? It's the same play. Instead of Colby Parkinson, Gerald Everett, and Will Disley on the field, you run the same play, and it's Freddie Swain, Tyler, and D. Eskridge on the field, right? Like an 11 person. So I think that's one of the things Shane's really going to get good at more as he gets cooking too, and just really finding ways to work with his guys. DK talked about that in his exit interview too. Like he's like, Shane's going to know me better. He's going to know Tyler better next year. And I do think that is important because as Shane will tell you a million times, it is a player's game. Ain't nobody coming in here and reinventing the wheel. And in terms of offense, they're really just not. You need linemen who can block, and then you need guys who make plays, and you just got to put them in some positions. And so I think there will be nice wrinkles that like the nerdy football guys who really know schemes will always pick up on, like, oh, that was cool. They did this. Usually you have an H-back dude, that stuff. But for the untrained eye, the offense is going to look the same. It's just going to, in theory, put guys in better positions to succeed. And I think, I tweeted a series of clips of quick game stuff to DK from the Lions game. That's one of those, if you're Shane, it's like, how can we get more of this out of DK so that maybe his air yards per target drops in half and he becomes a little bit more like Jarvis Landry, but he has more opportunity to be like a yak guy. Like that's probably a trade-off for DK that Shane could work in. It depends. Stuff like that, I think, is what's going to add to the offense. Also getting D. Eskridge the ball on something other than a fly sweep.
My goodness. I would also like to add getting Russ comfortable with getting the ball over the middle. We saw the charts. We realized that that's not his strength. It's one of his weaknesses. If they can implement the middle of the field for DK, D, Tyler, your tight ends, that offense just becomes more dangerous, more unpredictable because oh, snap, Russ is thrown over the middle. We give him the middle of the field. Now it's another problem because he is dicing you up over the middle. He throws the great moon ball on the sidelines. He's beating you everywhere. So if they can implement that and get Russ comfortable, that I think would be really key for this offense.
Yeah, you got to work the middle. You have to.
What are your thoughts on the running back room next season? I think we need to add a running back in free agency and draft another one, which, Mike, I think you hinted on like a lot this season.
Yeah, all right, this is probably going to be the Penny section here, and we can talk about. I'm very happy for Rashaad. I'm very sad for Chris Carson, that he got hurt. But there is no version of Rashaad that emerges like this without Chris getting hurt, and I think that's very important for my folks out there who are like, Mike, we got to pay Rashaad the moon, the sun, and the stars.
He's just going to be right on the bench.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
There's how can I put this in a way that is easiest to digest? There's no reason to pay Rashaad a lot of money if you're also going to keep Chris and bank on starting the season with Chris as your guy. The whole 1-2 punch thing is really tough to pull off. It really ends up becoming one guy's Batman, the other guy's Robin. That's usually how that be like an even split. Like even if you have a good secondary guy like a Tony Pollard to a Zeke or AJ Dillon to a Aaron Jones or a there's a one more I'm missing, Kareem Hunt to Nick Chubb. Like I understand having a good number 2 back, but they have to be a legit number 2. And I say that is Rashaad's not a Robin. We talked about this in August. Rashaad is Batman, and you let him be Batman, he can do what he did. He was the best back in football for a month. Not even lying. Better than Jonathan Taylor, better than Chubb or whoever for a month. Yes, he was. He really was. But now if you ask him to go, all right, you're only going to get about 7 carries now because we got to give Chris like 13. Well, then okay, then he goes back to being the back to being Robin. And I just don't think that's for him. And he talked about that in his exit interview as well. He said, for a running back, you can't just get a carry in the first quarter, kind of fill it out, and then not touch the ball again to the third. He's like, well, now I ain't got no rhythm. Well, I wrote that down. I said, that's exactly what would happen if he signs back here to be Chris's backup. That's exactly what would happen. Chris would get the first 4 series. He'd be tired. Rashaad would come in. And if they go 3 and out, he's only going to get those 2 carries. And then Chris is probably back in, or let's say he's in the next series, but then he doesn't come back in for the whole rest of the game because Chris is back, and not tired. So I just think that they're in a really tricky situation. Both guys have health concerns, but Rashaad is the one of the two. It's like he's the guy who has to be Batman. I don't really know what Chris can. I think Chris could be a Robin necessarily. So in theory, you could flip the roles, but I think Chris is a better back, so that's not smart. But that's kind of where I'm with the running back room, which is probably why I would just draft a guy.
Yeah, you said it a bunch. You've been saying it. Yeah. I'm not paying nobody. I'm just going to draft another running back out of one of them schools, Alabama, whatever the case may be. I'm drafting. No need to pay these guys. So yeah,
I think you can pay Rashaad something.
I hear you on that, but you're not going to give him, 6 a year.
No, I probably wouldn't do that. No.
And the thing is,
Chris didn't get that. Chris got 5.5.
Yeah. My thoughts on the running back room is they're going to need to pick someone else up because this game is physical. Chris Carson gets banged up year in and year out, unfortunately. Rashaad Penny, while this has been his best, 5-game stretch, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah.
I don't know if I could bank on him just being healthy for a whole season. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough for any running back to do it. Congrats to those that can do it, but you got to bring in someone else because if one of those guys goes down, you got to have someone ready to go. Is DJ Dallas that guy? I'm not 100% sold. I'm not sure. We don't get to see him much, but I also don't think he is that running back 1 or 2. He's literally a running back 3 or 4 with Travis Homer. He can come in. He can give you flash. He's a third down back. He's brought in to pass protect, catch screens, things of that nature. I'm not sure, though, with that running back room right now, they're successful. If they can stay healthy, it's a different discussion, but you got to bank on, all right, we're probably going to lose Chris Carson for 2 weeks here. You got to just have that mindset and maybe go out and get a free agent. Who they could get, have to look at the market. Let me take a look and see.
Oh, it's not good. I'm about to say, you can look at that market all you want. It's not
good. You already looking?
No, I think Fournette's going to be free agent maybe.
So that's someone you could possibly look at. I don't know. How old is he? 30?
Fournette's in the same draft class as Ethan Posick.
So he's 29, 28.
He's our age. He's younger than Posick's 27.
It's the bald head for me. When I see Leonard,
he went bald real early. Yeah, no, that's the thing. He went bald real.
So in that situation, he's young. That is, if the Seahawks can find. How much was he making, Mike?
I'm not sure, but the market is not great. And guys,
well, you said Leonard Fournette. If Leonard's the headliner, I'm okay. If the Seahawks wanted to go out and pay, well, how much you're going to pay Leonard? That's what it comes down to. But if Leonard Fournette's the headliner in the 2022 free agency class, and he wants to come to Seattle, I say go for it.
I'd have to double check on that, but my point of bringing up those guys is that it's so tough. Just draft a guy, man. Just draft a guy. But specifically with Rashaad, I think that they're in a tough spot there because Rashaad is not Robin. He's not a relief pitcher, whatever I've called him in the past. He's not that. He got to be the dude. And if he's not going to be a dude, don't bring him back to just ride the pine and come in and play spot duty. You're not doing him a service. You're not doing your offense a service with that.
1-year deal, $3.2 million for Leonard Fournette. That was his deal with the Bucks. He didn't have the best year this season, so maybe the Seahawks can get him at 1 year, $2 million deal. I would be okay with that if that's what he wanted to do. Just throwing that out there. That's one running back I would say go ahead and get him. He can come in. He's physical.
Why would he leave Tampa?
New scenery. Maybe he wants to play with Russ. He's played with Tom Brady. Go play with Russ. I don't know.
He's winning with Tom Brady.
Chris, I got a Super Bowl championship. You think I'm gonna just come to Seattle all of a sudden? Yeah, man.
I don't even know if he's healthy right now, but he's probably one of the best. Melvin Gordon, I think, is gonna be a free agent too. It just makes more sense to draft, guys. This really does.
Hey, I'm all for the draft, but it's cheaper. I get it. Get someone that knows the system, familiar with the league. I'm gonna go with Melvin Gordon and Leonard Fournette if available, and they can get him for a nice deal. Mike is going to go for less than $1 million, get a draft pick, work him up, coach him up. Hopefully he works out.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I can get 3 running backs in the third round, in the day 3 of the draft, and the UDFA dude for the price of one of your veteran guys. So yes, let me do that.
How would you guys like this franchise to move forward off Pete, John, Russ? Resign Penny, Diggs. What moves do you guys want this franchise to make?
I think, the 3 questions that somebody asked me, what I would ask Jody, are really at the core of what I think has to be important. Now, maybe the DB drafting thing isn't that important currently, just because you're probably going to get Trey Brown back. What did he do? He blew his knee out, but I don't think he tore any ligaments, or did he? I can't remember. Oh no, it was a tendon. I think he was a patella guy. Ooh, that's not good. Yes, that's rough. But you still have him under contract, and he's a good player. You got to get another corner if you're not going to bring DJ Reed back, which they think they should.
Whoa. If they better bring DJ Reed back, ain't no ifs in there. Don't do that, Mike. Don't do that.
Oh, never know.
Don't do that.
So I think I think they have the horses up front for the pass rush. I actually don't. I just think they have to tweak their scheme a little bit again.
Yeah, stop sending these cats in pass coverage, man. Let them rush the passer. I don't damn.
Yeah, but I think big picture, if you're going to run it back, I wouldn't. I think somebody has to come in and be able to oversee this roster construction, because this is not working. The Seahawks have basically decided to be a team, and I don't think the roster is bad, but again, they're not that close to being a championship roster. But my thing is that their thing has been, all right, let's build through the draft. Let's not spend a lot of money in that first wave of free agency. It's dangerous. Even the second wave is dangerous. We're going to be around that third wave type of team. And if we really need a splashy dude, let's trade for him. Let's do that. That's kind of been their team building model. And it doesn't, no, that's not good, because you need to be able to hit on those bargains in free agency. They haven't. If you're going to build through the draft, you have to draft well. Duh. They haven't. And then the trades are just getting not worse, but they're starting to become out of necessity. Whereas they didn't need to trade for Percy Harvin. That was a luxury, right? That's what happened. Percy got hurt. They still went to the Super Bowl, and then when they traded Percy the next year and went right back. So they didn't need him. Whereas they needed a dynamic offensive playmaking weapon like Jimmy, right? And they needed to trade for Sheldon Richardson because they whiffed on Malik, but they wouldn't have needed to trade for, Jimmy if in 2013, instead of taking Christian Michael, they took Travis Kelce, right? Then you have your dynamic playmaker right there. So they kept having to trade to make up for stuff. They traded for Dwayne because all they had behind George Fant, who was undrafted, was Reese Odiambo. So you had to trade. You had to trade for Sheldon because of Malik McDowell. You had to trade for Quandre because you didn't hit on Tedrick Thompson, Lano Hill, or Marquise Blair. That's 3 safeties that you whiffed on before ended up trading for Quandre. You had to trade for Jamal because, again, you whiffed on 3 safeties and then include Ugo Amadi in that too.
Can we just say 2 because Marquise been hurt? Sorry.
That's a whiff. It's a whiff. Just like Malik's a whiff. I
guess the incident was, a decision he made.
You draft guys, you gamble on them. Sometimes it doesn't work, but you still gamble. So I think that their team building model, I think, just it's not going to flip a switch and work. So I would want actually some new people to run that. I really would. The problem is Pete goes so good at the culture part that I read that quote from Dwayne. It's so hard. It's so tough to decide how they should go about it, because Pete he's good at the hardest part of the job, which is building a culture, but it's like, all right, you kind of struggling with the other parts of the job. Like,
Yeah.
get me a championship caliber roster. And I'm not sure. I thought their 2020 roster by the end was, and then I realized that I drastically overestimated how good the guys were up front. And so until these guys have a new way of building a roster, a new mindset, I just don't think this is the big three, the core to get that done.
I would like to see it real quick. Just Pete coach, John do personnel, and Russ play football. I think if those three things were to happen, might be more successful, because now John Schneider has total control over draft picks, over free agency. He has control. He wants the guys he can get. Now, I'm not saying that's what he's not doing. I don't know. But if in a perfect world, we knew for a fact that Pete has control over everything, which it appears, that's how I want to see it. Pete is the head coach. He has responsibilities as a head coach. John Schneider, he's doing all the GM stuff, player personnel, doing all that stuff. Russell Wilson, doing his thing on the football field. If he has questions, he can still go to Pete. He can still go to John, but his main focus is making sure that offense is cooking.
Yeah, the issue with that is we don't know. That's why one of my questions for Jody would be, who took LJ Collier? Who did? All
We
right,
both did.
You both did? Everybody get out. Like, that's what I'm saying. I can't just hand it over to John and feel comfortable, because, like, for all we know, it was John's idea to take Nazir Jones, right? Like, if that was the case, if who spent the top 100 pick or whatever on Amara Darboh? All right, get out.
Man, they gave him a couple chances.
Draft was very rough. It was a very rough draft. They saved their ass with Chris Carson, but they had a
7th round pick.
Yeah, they basically saved their ass by drafting Chris. Without Chris, that draft class is getting somebody fired.
If you have the GM hat, oh, look, Mike has a hat on. Perfect timing. What kind of deal are you willing to offer Penny? How high do you go to match the market? Is it worth considering trading, cutting, restructuring Carson to make room?
Yeah, I think you guys are really not you guys, sorry, but I think people are really overestimating what running backs get paid on the market. Who's the best running back to get paid on the market? Who got a bag from a new team? Come on, man, that don't happen. For real, look at that. Guys get paid by their own team. They don't get paid at all for the most part. Even Chris got 5.5. Chris Carson got 5.5. Aaron Jones got 10, I think, from his own team. Dalvin got paid from his own team. Kamara, his own team. McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon. All these guys got paid by their own team. The last person I can remember to get a big bag from a new team was what's his name? Le'Veon. Le'Veon got that huge deal from the Jets, and I'm pretty sure the guy who gave him that deal got fired.
That was a mess
after the deal. And then they cut Le'Veon. So I think that Melvin Gordon, I think got like 8 a year from Denver. But remember, he was going to get 12 a year or something like that from the Chargers, and turned it down or whatever. And he held out for more money. If you remember that. And they were like, all right, screw you, dude. We'll pay Austin Eckler. Another guy who got paid by his own team. So I really don't think there's going to be like this robust, market for Rashaad. Not just because he's not a good player, but mostly because running backs just don't get paid by new teams. I really don't think there's going to be this bidding war. I really don't. Now, maybe this will age really poorly as a take, but I just don't think that he's going to hit the market, and then the Seahawks are going to be like, all right, you guys want to give him $7 million? We're going to go 8 then. No, man. Chris Carson was on the market. And Chris has had multiple 1,000-yard seasons. Kenyon Drake was just on the market. James Conner was just on the market. None of these guys got the bag. I forget what James Conner even got, but
he got $2 million.
Did he really?
Bro, let me double check. I don't think he got, like you said, he didn't get paid that much, if I'm not mistaken. He got, my bad, he got 1.7, not even 2.
Come on, man. Thank you. And even he's not going to get a new bag, this offseason. I think that we're overestimating the running back market. We really are. I would probably give him the Mike Davis deal. What did Mike Davis get from the Bears? Like 2 years, $6 million or something like that.
I don't even know if it's that much.
That's probably what I would do. And anybody wants to go higher now, you can.
You're right. Yeah, 5.5.
5.5. Yeah, okay. I go 2 years, 6 if I'm the GM and Rashaad wants bag, and I'll do that. Anyone wants to outbid me there? Go ahead. Just the market. I'm looking at the. It's not even my opinion on this that much. It's look at who gets paid and where they get paid. No one gets paid by a new team. They usually just get paid by their own team, and then that's it. Melvin Gordon got the best deal I could think of. It depends on how you want to count Kareem Hunt, but those are extenuating circumstances because of his legal problems. So for the most part, guys get paid by their own team and don't get paid at all.
Well, what team next year would give Penny maybe a new deal that the Seahawks won't give him?
I can't think of one. I looked at this question. I went through some rosters. Teams have no incentive. They have guys that they want to pay. No one's usually that desperate for a new guy because they can just draft a guy. And they probably have to sign a guy anyway. Like the Ravens had a guy, they had guys. Well, they all died.
Got hurt.
Terrible
year for the Ravens, man.
Yeah, like a 3-week span. The Ravens really got screwed this year. But yeah, man, I just don't think there's going to be this market, man. I really just don't think. I don't even want to. There's no teams. I'm looking at teams like, why would this team? They can just draft a guy. Why would this team? They can just draft a guy. And then you like the market is reflecting that guys are thinking more like I am with paying running backs. Unless it's their own running back, then they're still overestimating value. But when it comes to new guys, teams aren't shelling out the bag.
With the run game taking off, when Penny took over, was he the key to getting Waldron's offense going?
I do think that he played a really big role in just keeping them on the field a little better and avoiding some third downs because he was running for so many first downs. Like I think he ended up, I don't have the leaderboard in front of me, so I won't look, but he ran for a lot of first downs. And when you run for a lot of first downs, you avoid that problem we talked about earlier. It's like, oh, you run, then you run. Well, it's 3rd and 6 now. We have to throw. You avoid that if Rashaad just picks up 12. Or on one play, he picks up 9, and another play, he picks up 7. Well, now, 2 plays, we done got 16 yards, and now we're in like 2nd and 3. You know, we can kind of call whatever. So to answer this person's question, yes, in that regard, he did. Because that whole run, pass thing doesn't work if your first 2 runs didn't get you a first down. That's where it's stupid. Rashaad is so goddamn explosive, you know, that he's running and getting 17 and then getting another 12. Next thing you know, we damn near in the end zone. Part of that was the blocking too. The blocking was excellent in the last, but Seattle's O-line in the last like
4 weeks, month,
6 weeks kicked ass. Like they were the better unit. I mean, like they even played well against the Rams, I thought. You know, all things considered, one team having Aaron Donald. You know, I thought that, and that was Jake Curran's first start, I think, maybe a second one. So like I thought they played really well. But yeah, Rashaad, because he was so explosive, really helped because he ran for so many first downs, and getting first downs was their problem. And he was able to fix that damn near single-handedly by running for so many. He ended up leading the league in yards per carry this year. Rashaad Penny did more than anybody else. Like that's how explosive he was. So I think that, yeah, he did unlock some things, but with his ability to get first downs on his own.
What is your assessment of the offense this season and how Waldron did in his first year of play calling?
You know what blew my mind looking it up today was how high the Seahawks offense ranked in DVOA, which adjusts for opponent and stuff like that. So if you whoop on the Lions, you know, it adjusts accordingly, you know, which is important because the Seahawks whipped on the Lions. The Seahawks is 7th in DVOA by Football Outsiders, man. Now, in offensive EPA per play by True Media, they weren't as high. They're like 14th or something like that, which is kind of where I thought they were. I would consider the Seahawks had like an average offense. I think that the third down stuff was a mess for a lot of reasons. Sometimes it was routes, sometimes it was Russ, sometimes it was the protection, sometimes it was the play call. Like third downs were just a disaster for 85% of the season. And I think that's really, really, really bad. They couldn't run the ball for like 2 months. That's really, really, really bad. Russ was bad for like a month. You know, like he was bad for like they didn't have Russ for October, and then he was bad in November, and then by then the season was over, and they couldn't run in either of those 2 months. So I think that they had those problems, and I don't know, the Shane thing. I thought his play calling when Russ came back was decent. I think he schemed up a lot of stuff that Russ just didn't hit.
Oh my goodness!
Specifically in the month of November, Russ was really
awful. They went 0-3 in November, Mike. They didn't win a game.
Yeah, it was some ugly stuff too. Colt McCoy, you know, getting shut out in Green Bay, losing to Taylor Heineke, stuff like that. A bad Washington defense
They scored 15 points. Yeah.
Yeah, on Washington. Washington had no damn good defense. Yeah. So I thought they were it's disappointing, pretty average year offensively. I think the last month is gonna like convince people it was a lot better than it was. Like they're gonna forget how many long stretches where DK didn't touch the ball in a lot of games. You know what I mean?
won't.
How they couldn't run a screen all year. Like these things are bad. Like if you can't get the ball to DK, you can't run a screen. You know, you go a month without being able to run the ball. You know, you're bad on third down all year. You know, these things are. This is tough stuff, man. You got to be able to get the ball to your playmakers and pick up first downs on third down. That's what I want you to be able to do as an offense. And they were about mediocre at that, and just using my eyes. You know, I can give you numbers until we're both blue in the face, but that's kind of just using my eye test. That's kind of the thing that I had an issue with the offense.
Yeah, I would say mid. Wasn't really impressed. No, for real. And it's funny, at training camp, we was like, okay, all right, this is looking kind of saucy. And the game started, as Russ always says, I think week one was just, week one.
We got a week one again last night.
That was my point. Russ, that was 17 weeks ago. That's 17 weeks ago, and you're on week one talking about, that was the best we looked. That is the problem. That's why I say the offense was mid. You pointed out all the things that went wrong this season. They played their best third down again on Sunday against the Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
Congrats. But it took 18 weeks. It wasn't like, week 3, they figured it out. 18 weeks, and they had their best third down percentage ever. Or not ever. This season.
This year. They were good against the Lions, too. So they had back-to-back.
Forget the Lions. They're terrible. They're just terrible. I'm being really nitpicky here, but the Lions are just a bad example. I'm sorry. Doing that against a Cardinals team that's going in the postseason that needed this win, they still lost. Then they got a little help with the Niners beating the Rams. They still blew it. So the Cardinals, they beat a good football team. Congrats. But the play calling this season, mid. I don't like some of your personnel things they were doing, like certain screens to players. I'm not going to bring it up because it's just
go ahead and say it. Go ahead and say
it. The screen to Travis Homer is still drilled in my head on 3rd and 6. It's just I'm watching the film like, who came up with this? Who said this was a great call? Let's run it. We're going to catch them off guard. Hell, they threw a fade to Penny Hart this season. I'm like, a fade to Penny Hart? That should be for DK no matter what, unless there's a blown coverage and Freddie Swain's wide open. Those are the things that I'm like, maybe mid is being too generous. Maybe I should just go out on a limb and be like, it was not good and it was bad. But I don't want to because we saw improvements. I know they weren't big because the Seahawks finished 7-10, but those are things that are just in my head. Like when I watch film, I'm looking at who the hell said this was great? Who thought, you know what? We're going to catch him here, guys. But that's just me. Let's move on. I had enough. I'm good.
Yep. I guess we know what your 3 questions for Jody.
I didn't want
who called that screen, Jody?
I didn't even want to bring that up because one of the questions was regarding the offense. Like, hey, if we bring in Shane, he's going to be the offensive play card. Pete, I don't want you in none of that. Let him run the offense. You brought him in to be an offensive coordinator, not be Pete's second-hand man. And when you have something to say, Pete, come in and switch everything up. But anyway, let's go on. Where in the world has this offense been the entire season? What contributed to converting third downs and the Hawks' inability to do so for the most part of the season?
Yeah, like I said, I hinted at earlier, it was a little bit of everything, man. Like I think if I had to give most of the blame early in the season, it was up front. I just think that, like, you look at when they were crappy against the Niners in that first game. Remember they had like 5 3-and-outs in a row in that Niners game. It was ugly. They had a bunch of 3-and-outs against, I want to say, Washington as well. But that first Niners game was really rough. They were just 3-and-out.
What was that, week 4? Like the first month of the season?
Yeah, it was week 4. And that stretch there was some really rough games early for the front line. Like there was, like Dwayne Brown said it today. I'm glad he called his season like okay, because even without my intimate knowledge of O-line play, like there were some games where he just didn't look like the guy. Like specifically against the Saints, there's a one play like Marcus Davenport like put him on his back. Oh my God, and Geno almost dies because of it. And it's just stuff like that. Russ was taking some sacks that were not on Russ earlier in the year, and then later in the year, I thought the sacks that he did take were mostly on him, or like a blown thing like Chandler Jones had in the Arizona game. But I think that was the only sack. Is actually in the second Arizona game. My point is, there's a little bit of everything. I think early it was up front. Later on, I think the play calling wasn't great. I think they were doing a lot of, and maybe some of this was Russ too. They were doing a lot of, all right, it's 3rd and 9, so we need everybody's routes to be 9 yards. And I know that, like, Mike, what do you mean they need 9 yards? Go, but it's like you don't. And I
You got to go past the sticks, man.
no. Sorry, I worded that poorly. You're correct. That's not what I mean. I mean that like everyone had to go at least 9 yards, and you don't always have to though. And I think there was a play in the Cardinals game. If you look, I can't remember which one it was, but it was 3rd and long. They threw the ball short to Tyler Lockett.
Oh, it was a blitz. Yeah.
And he was able to pick it up. His route was probably he probably caught the ball
3 yards. It was an out route, quick. Yeah.
Yeah. And he ended up, I think he had like a lead block from like Freddie or something like that. He was able to get the corner and get out of bounds, get the first down. And it was like,
oh, that's a different one. I'm thinking of a different play. My bad.
But we're thinking of, we both saw what I'm thinking.
Yes.
And it's stuff like that. And I know it seems like counterintuitive, like, Mike, wow, we ran a 7-yard route on 3rd and 9. But it's like, well, if you can design it right, if he catches it after 7 yards, he can run for the next 2. Like if you and I don't think they were doing that enough earlier in the year. And then when Russ came back, it was mostly just him. He was just not right on 3rd down in particular. And then it all started to come together a little later. Russ got healthier. The O-line started being better. They started being like, all right, we got to try new. I think they were so bad on 3rd down by the end of the year. They were just like, let's try anything. And some of it stuck, and then some of it was strange to DJ Dallas. But I think that it was a combination of everything because they were so bad. It wasn't just one thing at all. It was one thing at like different parts of the year. Play calling for a second, front for a second, Russ for a second, and then it all kind of come together.
What player on offense and defense did you get a look at this year who caught your eye and could be due for a big season next year?
This is a good one. I think there's a few. But the obvious one I think is Darrell Taylor. Like I think
son of a bitch.
Darrell Taylor, and someone asked what our favorite plays from the year was, and this won't be mine, but it's like an honorable mention. It's from week 1, and it's Darrell Taylor running smooth through the Colts right tackle. I think his name Braden Smith or something. He puts that grown-ass man on his back and goes straight to Carson Wentz. And that was one of those where I was like, yep, Darrell's going to be a guy. And he had a few rushes like that where I think Darrell's ready. Darrell's ready. And I don't even think he needs like much more time. Like he could be like a double-digit sack guy next year, and I would not be surprised.
Oh, yeah. You stole my defensive player. So you know what? Screw you, Mike. I'll go with DJ Reed, okay? I'm going cornerback. One of my I know it's a good one, but I was like, yeah, I'm going to take Darrell Taylor here because I know Mike's going to come with some random dude that I forgot was even on the team, but he played really well because Mike was on there watching his film like a hawk. But I'm going to go DJ Reed on defense. I thought he had a good year. He got banged up, unfortunately missed time, had COVID. But overall, I liked what DJ Reed came in and did. Hell, against the Cardinals, as Mike likes to say, when you don't hear about someone on the field regarding the offensive line, that means they're playing really good. That was DJ Reed. I don't know. I'm going to rewatch the game and everything, but I'm going to watch like what he was doing coverage-wise because all the sacks that we saw, a lot of them were coverage. Kyler Murray was looking, and there was no one open. I'm not saying that was all DJ Reed, but as a unit, they played really good against the Cardinals. And for me, DJ Reed has been doing that pretty much all season, except for against the Vikings.
Yeah.
Adam Thielen, white boy just nasty with it. Some dudes just got it. And it's okay. You can learn from that and get better. But defense, I will say DJ Reed caught my eye for sure. I'm looking forward to see what he can do next season as well.
Yeah, DJ and Darrell are two dudes. Yeah, there's some good pieces there. I think on offense, yeah, it's a little trickier because most of the people are older, but I think it would probably have to be Jake Kerr in the right tackle, man. He had some good reps that I saw, man. He can block his ass off too, man. Look at some of those runs that Penny had, and you see number 74 or whatever his number is right there. You see his back, moving guys out the way so Rashaad can slice through. Their offense is kind of old, not old, but it's like not full of new faces necessarily. But yeah, Jake was one up front where I'm like, ooh, they might have got themselves a guy here. All right. I still think that you got to consider Brandon Shell coming back, maybe, like it's for some depth. But if you just want to spend big on a right tackle somewhere else, but still have Jake on the roster, too. Like, go get a stud. But if our stud get hurt, we got Jake. I think I'm cool with that. Jake looks like he got some potential.
I picked him last year as someone to watch, and I was pretty much spot on. I picked Freddie Swain, and again, whether it's because he just finds a way to be open, it's like he goes invisible for a snap, and then poof, he's back on the screen, and the was like, oh, that's where he went, touchdown. I'm gonna say Freddie Swain again. He just finds a way to get open. He's not the player that we want him to be when on big maybe third downs he's able to create and he's open because he created separation. It's more so the defense forgets about him, which is not a negative towards him, but there's still room for him to improve. But I do like what I've been seeing from Freddie, and he's improved again this season. I know having that extra game helped. If you look at his stats, it's a big gap, and maybe that extra game did help. But I like what Freddie Swain did this season for sure. That's one player I'm looking forward to seeing how he does again next season. How do you see the trenches, O-line and D-line, improving next season?
I hinted at the pass rush, and I didn't explain myself. I think they have, to answer this question, I think that they have the horses there. I really think that they do. I think that I think Kerry can be a lot better than he was this year. I mean, Carlos is still a dude, man. Like, Carlos told us on Sunday, he was like at the bye week or whatever it was. He basically told him like, "Hey, man, I need to be rushing the
passer. You put me in damn coverage.
I'm over here guarding Robert Woods, bro." Like, and he rushed the passer. And they started letting him rush the passer, and he got to the quarterback.
Hello.
So it's not rocket science. So I think that stuff like that. You get him, if they were able to get Rasheem Green back, that's somebody who could end up getting paid, because the market for guys who can get to the quarterback is different than running backs. Rasheem's like 24. He's already played 4 years in the league, and he's good. So he's a guy that him, not Penny, I think is who would get priced out of Seattle. But like if they were able to get Rasheem back, got Carlos, you got Darrell. I still like Alton Robinson with more snaps, not in coverage. So I think they've got the horses there. So I'm not too worried about it. Bringing back Al Woods would be nice. I really like Brian Monet, another young dude who's good. Puna Fort. O-line though, I'm willing to have. I'm willing to have 3 new dudes there next year, and I'm even willing to like bring in some competition at guard too, just to push somebody like D-Lou a little bit too. So he's like, yo, all right, they're bringing in this dude. All right, let me get my stuff together. I think D-Lou's a really good guard too, but you can always upgrade in pass pro, I think. And I think that's where someone like D-Lou is probably going to get better. But if not, bringing some competition there. But I'm cool with a new left tackle. I'm cool with a new right tackle, and I'm cool with a new center. That's I don't know who those guys would be, but I think you should go in being very okay with, or even like your goal should be, let's find the 3 best dudes at these positions that we can.
You mentioned Darrell Taylor. So can Darrell Taylor make the leap and be the premier pass rusher the team needs, or do they got to find somebody else?
Yeah, no, I don't think they need it. I don't think they need anybody else. I really would like Rasheem back. I really would. I just think he's so good, man, and so young. Him and Darrell are the same age, I'm pretty sure. Like, think about that. Like, Darrell drafted whenever, and then Rasheem drafted in 2018. I think they're the same age. Like he's. If you tell me, all right, Mike, top 4, we got Alton, we got Carlos, we got Darrell, we got Sheem. Those are your 4 edge guys. I need them to get it done. I'd be like, all right, I'm all right with that. I'd maybe grab another in the draft if you want. But yeah, I think that you're cool with that as your like 4. I don't really. If you want to bring Benson back, I'm not like opposed. I'm not like rah for that. I'm kind of indifferent on that one. I don't really care. But if you tell me those are your 4 guys, and you're not gonna have dropping the coverage all the damn time, except for Darrell, because he hits the hell out of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Darrell and Carlos as your 2 premier guys is good enough.
If you can go back in time and change one move the Seahawks made in the last 5 seasons, what would it be?
This is probably one of the favorite questions that we got from last night. And to be clear, the parameters, they said I can change anything, a draft pick, I can veto a trade. This is great. So I thought a lot about this. I'm going to go back in time to 2017, because that's in our 5-year parameter, right? Yeah, 2017. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back there, and I'm gonna tell John, I'm gonna tap him on the shoulder. I say, John, I know you like this Malik McDowell kid. I hear you. I do. He's talented. See that guy from Wisconsin? TJ Watt or wherever TJ Watt went. I don't know if he went to Wisconsin, but take TJ Watt. Just take him. Trust me, John. I know you got Michael Bennett. I know you got Cliff Averill. I know you have Frank Clark. Take this TJ Watt kid. You then thank me later. Because I think that move right there, they would have had a nasty pass rush. Just nasty. And it would have remained nasty if Cliff got hurt, which he did that year. And I think also instead of taking Malik, they wouldn't have had to then trade for Sheldon Richardson because Malik got hurt. So then they would have had Curse that year in 2015, which, was a guy Russ really trusted. And they would have had a second round pick in the 2018 draft, which I don't think they had. They ended up using that to get Sheldon. So I just think the Malik move had a bunch of ripples that you can avoid if you just take a different player, and that player is TJ Watt. It's one of the think about that. Your D-line room, your edge room in particular, is Michael Bennett, Cliff Averill, TJ Watt, and Frank Clark. Oh my Lord. I am cool with that. Even if you still trade Mike and Cliff gets hurt, your 2018 D-line room is Frank and TJ Watt. What? Yeah, no, I think I go back in time and I change. That doesn't change everything, but I think if that's a really impactful move, you can go undo that makes the team much better, short term in that 2017 year and long term.
Should the Seahawks do the following? Trade Bobby, sign Ryan Jensen, sign Chandler Jones.
They're not gonna be able to afford Chandler Jones. That dude is nasty, bro. He is so good. But if you can, go ahead. But I think you got to dedicate your resources more to Ryan Jensen. That's the Bucs center, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if he's willing to not play for Tom Brady anymore.
Yeah, the same thing hit me with Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, it's gonna be real tough. People pulling guys away from the Bucs. I know the Bucs don't have a lot of cash, so eventually guys will have to leave. But yeah, I'm all for the O-line more than I am Chandler, because I just talked up the pass rush group in Seattle, and I actually do believe in them. I think they need to tweak the scheme so you don't have Carlos Dunlap guarding Robert Woods.
Oh my god!
Well, he
never makes sense.
He tried to jam one of the Cardinal slot receivers on Sunday. Carlos White. I'm not mad at him. It's just like, why do you guys have to do that?
Yeah.
He can be the strong side guy sometimes. Like he had a play where he the Amon-Ra dude from Detroit ran like a fly sweeper, like a reverse, and Carlos held the edge and held it to a negative gain or whatever. He can do that. That's part of the role of playing on the edge. But
exactly,
I'm guarding guys. Come on, bro.
I'm covering an area. No.
Yeah, no, don't do that. But yeah, I'm all for the Ryan Jensen thing for sure. You got to upgrade at center. You got to. Them not taking Creed Humphrey. Shoot, honestly, maybe that's the move I go back and change. Is like instead of taking D, take Creed. But I think I like the TJ Watt thing more. Let's see. Trade Bobby. No. You're not gonna. No, don't trade Bobby, man. No. I'm not trading Bobby. And it's not even just like a sentimental thing necessarily. Because I do like Bobby. I think he's a legitimately good dude. I just think that you're creating too big of a problem. All right, you got $16 million. You don't have a middle linebacker. That's a problem. You don't have a defensive captain. Once you trade captains, that's tough. Quandre was one of the Lions captains. They traded him. Darius Slay, a leader in that locker room. So yeah, I'm not trading Bobby.
With Quandre's injury, would the Seahawks cover the cost of recovery, rehabilitation, medication, etc., or is all on Diggs now that the season is over?
No. I think all that's still on the team. I'm not sure. I looked at this too. I'm not sure the specifics on all that, but yeah, I'm pretty sure all that's on the team and stuff. I mean, I don't know who's like going when he gets the prescription for the pain pill, so he's gonna get like, does he have to front that? I don't know. I don't necessarily even care. But I will say this on Quandre, interesting thing. He broke bones, right? And so that sucks. But bones heal. It's not funny, but it makes me think of when that kid from Louisville, the basketball team.
Oh, yeah, that was gross.
And everyone was like, prayers up for whatever Kevin. It was Kevin something. It was like Kevin Ware. It was like prayers up for Kevin Ware. Somebody tweeted. They was like, why is everybody praying for him? He broke a bone. It's gonna heal. And it's so mean, but
it's so correct.
It was correct. Like, yeah, Kevin came back and he was fine. I think he played for like Georgia State or something like that. After that. Anyway, my point is, Quandre didn't tear his ACL, which would be bad, or pop his Achilles, which would be probably worse. He broke bones. That's gonna suck. but Quandre could legitimately be back to full speed by training camp, probably. And like if that's the case, and I would actually bet on him being full speed by like your birthday, Chris. It's early July. Like I would project by then he's back running, hitting his leg, trusting his leg again, and everything. So he can still get paid. I wouldn't be surprised if a team paid him, thinking, "Hey, man, we know where you're at in rehab. You're about 2 months in on a 4-month thing. Cool, we'll pay you as long as you pass a physical by training camp. Here's I don't know, $15-16 million a year. We believe in you."
Do you think re-signing our key free agents will hurt the ability to sign bigger agents, free agents that is, from other teams?
Yeah, because I think teams really overestimate their own guys but I don't think they have that many guys that are priority. Pete Carroll on the radio tried to like temper expectations or taper or whatever, however you're supposed to say that. Tried to like lower the expectations, like, hey, remember, we got money, but we got to sign our own guys first. And it was like, yeah, you do. But how many of them for real? Like, who's a must sign? Like, I think DJ's a good one. Like I said, I like Rasheed, but if somebody outbids you for him, that happens. So trying to think of who else is a must sign, a must bring back. I would have said Quandre for sure. So it depends on how they want to handle that. His market will be interesting to monitor, but yeah, beyond. I mean, Big Al. I think Big Al, but that's not going to break the bank. Like I don't think. Put it this way: if some of these other guys walked, I think you can live. Even as much as I like Dwayne, if he walked, I think you can live. Brandon Shell, Ethan Posick, Gino. Who else is it? Rashad. I think a lot of guys would be nice, but you don't have to break the bank for them, and you can explore elsewhere, draft, whatever. So it shouldn't impact the free agency of signing other guys, but I can see Pete Carroll easily wanting to bring back everybody I just named, and then you got $12 million left over, and you've brought back the same damn roster that just won 7 games.
Biggest draft need for the Seahawks 2022?
O-line. You know what I want some team to do one year is just draft an entire group of O-linemen with their entire draft. Like 7 O-linemen, one in every round. Just screw it. Just say, I'm going to just draft one in every round. That would be so fun. Because you can never have too many good ones. Because if you do have depth, you can trade and then get more assets back or whatever. Or you can keep them. And that way, if someone gets hurt, now we got more depth. So yeah, it's got to be O-line. I think they have playmakers on offense. And then after that, I would really look at the secondary. I think you just got to start drafting. Look how much fun it is when you draft someone in the secondary and they're good, like Shaq, like Trey Brown. Like when that works, it's great and it's cost effective. So do it. So I think that's those two in particular. Those two groups, the hardest groups to find probably is corners or DBs and linemen. But yeah, I think that's what you need.
Thoughts on hiring Vic Fangio and bringing back Dan Quinn and moving Ken Norton Jr. to linebackers coach?
Yeah, guys here, and this is not just to this specific person who asked this question, but Pete likes Ken Norton, man. Like he does it. Like I know there's still like a fire Ken Norton movement here, and I'm not even willing to debate the merits of that necessarily. Although he's kind of got my vote there. But even if he didn't, he has Pete's vote, and that's the vote that matters because So as long as Pete likes you, you ain't getting fired. So I think I think we can try to rule out all these scenarios where, do they get rid of Ken? Do they? No. I just don't think that's going to happen.
Did Russ do enough to prove to Jody and the front office that he's not washed? They just had a bad break this season.
Yeah, I think so. He was never washed. That's strong. But yeah, I think so. I think if you had any worries about, wait, is Russ going to be him again? He's going to be him again. He was him again, and for better or worse, in that Arizona game, like he basically gave Arizona 14 points in that game with the strip sack and then the
interception.
Then the interception that got returned, I believe, to the 1, which is basically might as well just let him score at that point. But I get why you don't. But yeah, so despite gifting them 14 points, Russ was still a baller. He still converted those third downs. That was really tough. He made some money throws. He ran for that touchdown. Yeah, Russ has been him. He was okay. He was good he was fine against the Bears, considering the elements. The Rams, he's still struggling against them. It's weird. He still struggles against that same team, even with Shane calling the plays. That means they're really kicking ass in their film study in the Rams room. But yeah, I think so. Short answer, 100%. I think Russ is going to be him. I always thought he'd be him again, for what it's worth. I do think, though, that defenses have gotten a little bit more patient in recognizing, all right, this is the things he doesn't want to do, so let's try to force that, specifically with the split safety looks and some of the disguising that teams do. And that's going to cause him to have to elevate his game, but I think he can do it. And at the end of the day, teams only change their defensive scheme week to week, but so much. They're going to run their stuff. They're not going to have a whole different change our whole philosophy because we're playing Russ type of thing. No, they're going to make adjustments. But I think Russ is still going to be that guy. And he showed that. Basically, if you imagine Russ came back after, what was it? It's supposed to be 4 to 8 weeks. Imagine he came back after 8, right? Take every game that would have been the 8th game or whatever, and then to the end of the year. And you'd be like, oh, Russ is fine. It's when he came back too early and was out there stinking up the joint in November. That's kind of skewed the perception a little bit.
How could we ever consider moving on from the best player in franchise history?
Who, Bobby?
That's a good question. They didn't say.
Yeah, no, I think there's an argument that it's Bobby, man. 6-time All-Pro, 8-time Pro Bowler, man. That's tough. Captain of in the middle of one of the baddest defenses ever. But if it's Bobby or Russ, because this question didn't specify, I wouldn't get rid of either guy. Like, you really need, one thing about that Dwayne quote that I read earlier, a lot of the reason that Pete's messaging sticks is because of guys like Pete, or excuse me, guys like Russ and guys like Bobby, because they exude that same type of positivity and uplifting. Go listen to Tyler Lockett's quote from last night when I asked him about Russ. It's like just Russ just giving these guys words of affirmation means a lot to them. Just saying good job, just some simple good catch, good route, stuff like that. Like Russ
sounds like me on Saturdays.
Yes, Russ is Russ and Bobby both bring intangibles, and I feel like if anyone questions the value of those intangibles, go look at how Rashaad Penny talks about Adrian Peterson. Vets matter. They do. I know if they're expensive, you're like, well, Mike, there's a salary cap. I get that. I agree. But at the same time, they're also both still good players. Russ and Bobby are still top 10 at their positions. If they're being paid like the top 5, whatever, that's how the cookie crumbles. At least they're not Kirk Cousins, right? Like Bobby's still a top 10 linebacker. Russ is still a top 10 quarterback. Boom. Keep them both. End the discussion.
Some players have a knack for making big plays. Homer made some huge plays this season. Has he done enough to be part of this team's plan moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, he protects Russ. So, yes. Anybody who protects Russ is worth all of the money in the world. Any contract extension. Just according to Chris, don't run no screens to him.
Facts.
I think Travis is exactly what, it's not a guy you like re-sign maybe. But for while he's on his rookie deal, that's exactly the type of guy you need. Someone can just come in and I can say, hey, you see number 3? Don't let nobody touch him. And he says yes. Invaluable. Love a guy like that. I don't know how much about giving him the ball, though, to run it. I just don't know if this is he really seems like the home run hitter. Like, he seems like when he gets some steam, he'll run through a guy, which I think he did yesterday.
He just bounced off Buddha.
No, was that Buddha that he trucked on the 23-yard catch and run on the third down? I think he trucked somebody. Like Travis.
The film will tell us.
Yeah, Travis is a load. So I do like him, especially because he protects Russ. That's his biggest value to the team.
Who is your most improved player, biggest overachiever, underachiever, offense, defense, special teams MVPs, best bargain, and favorite play from the season?
Oh, okay. This is a lot. Most improved player. Who's my most improved player? I would probably say, this is Jordan Brooks, probably. I thought Jordan actually had a lot of growth just in this season, really, just with the screen stuff in particular. I thought Jordan was really he still has some stuff to get better at for sure. route recognition and stuff like that, and some pass coverage stuff. Like teams have tried to hit that same ball, that same crosser that kind of he has to turn and run on. Like Aaron Rodgers hit it. I think someone overthrew it. I want to say Foles. Like
it happened on Sunday against the Cardinals. Christian Kirk caught it. He was right there. Yeah,
and teams have been running that all year, and if the throw was there, the guy's hitting it. And I think that it's just stuff like that. But I think he made some really, really big leaps. I don't know about overachiever. I guess if I had to say, I think Al Woods played better than probably Al Woods thought he would play. Like that was unreal. What Al Woods did, Al was like a top 10 defensive tackle at like age 34. That's really impressive. I don't know if he's ever been a top 10 defensive tackle in his career. And
he's going to be in the top 100 this year. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, he should be, man. That's a big boy. Biggest underachiever. This is an interesting one. I thought, I thought Ugo would be a lot better this year. I thought this would be the year, man. I thought it really would. That he looks like okay, like how Justin Coleman looked that one year as a slot guy. I thought this would be that. Maybe I just talked myself into it. I'm not sure. But just talking to people around him, it just felt like it had kind of clicked. And I'm not really sure. It didn't happen. Like I would definitely go look to address that position this offseason. Like, hey, open competition at nickel. And that's not to say he wouldn't win that competition. He could beat anybody out. He knows their stuff, which is most important. But yeah, I just think that's a spot. He plays a lot of snaps. And I don't think has a ton of impactful play. Like everything I think people project about like Jamal. Like, oh, Mike, you don't make no impact plays. What are you doing out there? I think that's dumb. You can make that argument about 28, though. I feel like 28's out there. I feel like he has more holding penalties on third downs than like impactful plays, unfortunately. So yeah, that would be my underachiever. What else was it?
Offense, defense, special teams, MVPs.
I think my MVP probably is probably Nick Bellore on special teams, just because he's funny as hell. Has nothing to do with his special teams. His Between Two Bellore show is funny as hell. That DK episode almost had me ready to cry. He said this DK stand for don't know you can't go back in the game after getting kicked out. I was like, damn, that was fire. Defense is Quandre. Man, Quandre just balled this year, man. He was just special. Quandre was just a special guy. Special this year. One of the best at his position. Probably would get some all-pro votes, man. He was just a baller. He won't be all-pro, I don't think, but he might get a vote or two, which is like real acknowledgement that you were a baller. Offense. You know who I think was Seattle's like low-key? Like the best offensive player this year was Tyler, I think. But like a close number 2 is Gabe Jackson, man. I thought he was just really consistent. I thought he was consistent all year. Not a lot of high, not a lot of lows. Like he just really did his job at a high level all year. I thought him and Tyler were really consistently just delivering. No matter who was the quarterback, no matter the opponent, it was just like, I'm gonna just go out here and do my job at a high level. I thought Tyler and Gabe Jackson both should probably share that award this year. All right, what else would we say?
That's bargain.
The best bargain's got to be Al, right? Is it Al?
I mean, you could argue Gabe Jackson again.
Nah, because Gabe got that extension.
Oh, okay, I feel you on that.
So did Tyler. Yeah, or I guess DJ Reed's making nothing. So it's probably DJ Reed. DJ Reed was probably like a top 20 corner in the league this year, maybe a little higher, depending on what you care about. He was probably like top 20 for sure. Like he was definitely a CB1 type of guy for however much he's making in the final year. His deal, or him or Darrell Taylor were probably one of the best bargains off the top of my head. They were both killing. I mean, DK is also a bargain. Maybe it's DK. I
don't use him.
He had 12 touchdowns this year.
He should have 20. Move on.
20 touchdowns. What do you think he is? Cooper Kupp?
Should be.
And favorite play of this. That's a tough one. I got a couple. I have 2 from the same game. And I just think that the double punt by Michael Dixon. I know Mr. Never Kick picking a punt, but that was so excuse me. That was so damn cool when Mike did that, dog. And I think the other one, The other one is probably Geno's touchdown to DK in that same Rams game. Sorry, that laughing about that fake punt, that double punt got me. But yeah, I think just that was just a crazy day. Like there was so many emotions there. Like beyond Russ getting hurt, it felt like I was really living in a movie in that game. Just so much was going on, and when Geno came in there, we all thought it was over. Next thing you know, they chanting his full name, and when he threw that touchdown, it was crazy. There's a couple of them. Some of them throws from Russ to Tyler. Some of the moon balls was really crazy. A couple Darrell Taylor hits, but yeah, that Rams game and that play, that double point was crazy. And I thought the Geno to DK touchdown that had me believing. I was in the press box like the magic is about to happen. It's about to happen. Like the Seahawks actually are clutch, and then they weren't. So maybe that's not the best game to pick. But those are like tie in my head.
Does this win against the Cardinals feel different when speaking to the players?
You don't got it. Wait, you don't got a favorite play?
Well, I know there was time, so I was like,
Give us a favorite play. Come on, man.
Mine will probably the hit Darrell Taylor put on the running back against the Cardinals. Was that against the Cardinals? He came off the edge.
Oh no, that was the Lions. He hit the Jamal Williams. He smoked that man.
Yo, that put me in EA Sports Madden. We in the game. Like you come off the edge, hit stick. It didn't result in a fumble or anything, but that just shows you how talented Darrell Taylor is. And you mentioned he made a couple of big plays all season where he's just decking guys. Hell, I saw it in practice. I'm like, Darrell Taylor, he's really magnificent. He's going to be something special, I think. Seahawks might have found something there. And I'll say I like the punt as well, but the Travis Homer, the fake punt, that was pretty cool. I know it was like, oh, that was pretty cool. Because when's the last time the Seahawks ran a fake punt? Was it successful?
They ran one. Travis actually ran one against the Vikings his rookie year, 2019. I think.
So Travis is the king of trick plays, I guess.
Yeah, that's about somebody asked about him being a playmaker. That's probably what they meant. I know I talked about pass blocking, but yeah, he's on special teams. He's like that dude.
That was pretty cool to see. You know, he just got it, and I'm like, damn, he gonna score, and he scored. So that was really cool. That was one of those special plays that I enjoyed from this season. And then let's see, does this win feel different when speaking to the players?
The Arizona one.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, I mean, not different. They just want to win, man. They just didn't want to be losers. They wouldn't want to go in the offseason being losers, really. Like they were genuinely like you could tell that was a Super Bowl type of thing. Like they went out with a bang. But look, if you need an example, like go look at Poona Ford. They posted a video of him coming off the field from the Arizona game. He just look at that smile, man. He's like, we went out with a bang, man. He said mission accomplished. Because you know what? At the end of the day, all they had was a game in front of them. And yes, guys are definitely happier talking after a win. I didn't hit anybody up of note anyway. Not that I feel like sharing after the game, just because I was so focused on whether they would fire Pete while I was on my plane home. I was really worried about it. Really worried about that, man. The national reports got me. I never thought he would get canned like that, but the national reports kept getting in my head. So I think, yeah, everyone's just happier after a win, man. Even if it was a disappointing season, man. I've been in a lot of press conferences. Actually, I've been in one every year where they don't win the last game of the year, whatever it is, and those suck. So that was actually my first time covering when they did win their last game of the year.
Well, speaking of winning, which win were you most impressed with this season?
Yeah, I thought this was an interesting question because none of them were that impressive. Because, I mean, the Arizona one, I guess, would be the one. But at the same time, guys, I don't know if you guys know this. Arizona's not good. Like, I remember, I think I've picked Arizona to, like, be last in the division this year. Clearly, I was wrong. But, nah, man. I still think they're the worst team in the division. Like, I really think that. Like, I think the Rams are the best. I think the Niners are the second best. I think there's a gap. And then I swear, man, the Seahawks had no business beating them the way they did yesterday. Like, Arizona had everything to play for. The Seahawks had no Bobby, no Al Woods. Ryan Neal wasn't out there, so they were down to a dude I had never heard of playing safety. Like, no Will Disley. I know Cardinals are missing, like, D-Hop and stuff, but I don't think the Cardinals are good. I don't think Cliff Kingsbury that good. I really don't think so. I think that's kind of showing. So, yeah, I don't know how many. And then they beat the Niners, who they always beat. That Colts team was fraudulent. Like, they had a lot of just, like, we beat some teams that ain't great. For real. How many playoff teams they beat this year? Niners? That's it?
Because they AFC South, that was a terrible so there you go.
That's it. They beat the Niners. That's the only playoff team they beat. The team they always beat, whether they're a playoff team or not. So yeah, I wasn't too impressed with some of their wins this year.
And the last one, how close is this team from a talent and scheme standpoint to going on a playoff run? Can the Seahawks make up the gap to other NFC playoff teams given the resources available for improving this team?
Wait, hold on. Run me that one again.
How close is this team from a talent and scheme standpoint to going on a big playoff run? Can the Seahawks make up the gap to the other NFC playoff teams given the resources available for improving the team?
They're not that close, like I mentioned earlier. Sucks to close on this, but they gotta get lucky, man. I really do. I think they're gonna need to hit really hard in the draft, man. Like I'm talking like have like a 2011 draft. Like it's 2010 they got 2 Hall of Famers. But 2010 they were just money. Actually, that's probably what they need. They need like a 2010-ish draft.
Damn, Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas. Ooh, that's tough.
Tate, it's really also drafted in there.
Oh, Russell Okung still playing.
Yeah, so maybe 2011. It's when they got Sherm, James Carpenter, and KJ.
Yep.
That was Malcolm Smith. Like that was a good. They need to have one of those. They don't need to go full 2012 where they got 2 Hall of Famers, or 2010 where they got 2 Hall of Famers. But they need something like that.
2012 they were close.
Honestly, even 2020 is looking actually it's going to be a good draft. It's not studs. They need more studs. And I think they need to have like a
Jordan and Darrell, Damian. Those are 3 good picks.
Yeah, so that's kind of where they got to hit. I think they got to get really lucky, man. Because like I mentioned earlier, their current team building strategy just doesn't get it done. So they have to shift from it or get really freaking lucky in the draft and hit on like a Hall of Fame type of guy or like a Pro Bowl type of guy like DK was with the 64th pick or something like that.
Maybe I'll test my luck and get into scouting and see if I can help the Seahawks out.
I mean, if you do, let me know. Don't tell nobody, though. Only just tell me. That's it. You can be my source in the building.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gents. That's a wrap on the 2021-22 season for the Seattle Seahawks.
Appreciate the wrap. We're not done, but we definitely got to take a step back and say thank you guys for this
Absolutely.
season. It was a lot of fun because of you guys. Podcast was. Some of them games sucked, but me, Chris, doing this with you guys, talking about what you guys want to hear about, that's always fun. Some of the games, though, losing to Taylor Heineke, that sucked.
That was brutal.
Okay, that sucked. This right here, to quote Cat Williams, this right here, this was fun.
Very fun. Well, the good news is we're going to keep rolling. We're still going to have podcasts coming out. I'm pretty sure we're going to do one maybe next week, but needless to say, we want to thank you guys again for rocking with us on Seahawks Man to Man. We'll catch you in the off season. Don't be afraid to hit us up with more questions. We can still answer some. So don't feel like, we can't ask you can still ask. DM me. DMs are open. DM Mike. Other than that, we'll catch you guys later. Mike, anything else you want to add?
I appreciate you guys. Appreciate the love. We'll be back this off season. Stay posted. Stay to the YouTube channel, Spotify, Apple, The Athletic, all that stuff. We out.